Hello, I love you. Won't you tell me your name? Hello, I love you. Let me jump in your game. Yep, yep. I realize there's a couple of live streams going on right now. Lots of people in them. Probably won't even get anything if I even get a handful in here, right? Only reason why I did it was because no matter where I went in those um, uh, multiple people filled live streams, I couldn't stand listening to what I was listening to. So here's the thing, So, I'm a big supporter of the library, so I really gotta return these books. I mean, I feel like a schmuck, but between a rock and a hard place, because I really wanted to finish reading The Art of Racing in the Rain to even if it's just one person who is enjoying hearing me, you know, read that book that I believe is just such a beautiful book, and it's all told from the eyes of the dog. He's, like a golden retriever or any dog you want to picture him to be. His name is Enzo. And the story is like told from the eyes of the dog. And so it's up to the point where Denny, his owner, his wife has passed away. And so, he's in a custody battle with his wife's parents, his in laws, over their daughter Zoe. And there was this whole kind of setup thing. You can go back into playlists of the story time playlist and the reading, and all I can say is that I hope I can like provide a spot where I don't know. I mean, I know I don't have the most soothing voice in the world, but um, I'm just gonna finish the book because, like I said, I was between a rock and a hard place. Like I would never usually have a hard time returning a book, even if yeah, I've read The Art of Racing in the Rain many times. So uh, me returning it now, I could because I owe money on it. But here's the thing, then I wouldn't have finished it. So if there was even just one person who was following that story and was interested in what it was saying, then I could say, oh, well, go take it out of the library yourself and finish it. Well, that wasn't the deal. The deal was that I said I was going to read it online. I got all the way to chapter 32, and then I stopped reading it because, I guess for a little while there, I stopped thinking about even if it was just one person who was listening. So right now it says zero, but here's the thing, whatever, doesn't matter. And hey, all right. So let me give you a synopsis. Here's the thing, too. I know I saw a couple of people that were like somewhere in live streams. They were complaining about the fact that they were in particular live streams and but I would have stayed too where I was if they would have like realized and seen how many people were saying just don't, shut it off, you proved the point. And a lot of people were saying, all right, well, they were going to leave, but so, didn't seem like it was going anywhere of saying just shut it off and everything. But it wasn't like it's possible they don't have their notifications set to, you know if somebody went live. But it's funny because a couple of them, they were people who were following this live stream, but a good friend of mine, with the story time stuff. But a good friend of mine told me one time that, just keep going because people, even if they're not there at that time, it doesn't mean that they won't rewatch. You know, people are watching something else, and it's just like when you used to like record your favorite shows because you wanted to watch something else, but you wanted to also watch this, but you know, and that was the whole beauty of it. So hey, whatever it is. So the thing is this. So where I ended up was, I believe it was like the middle of chapter 32. Yeah, middle of chapter 32. And Denny was getting arrested because of when he brought that like cousin from extended family home from the ski trip, Annika. And while he was asleep, she tried to like make a sexual move on him. And so, you know, apparently she has like filed some kind of false charges. So they came to his job and um, arrested him in front of the customers and shit, you know, and they deal with all like high end automobiles, like luxury automobiles and shit. So, um, you know, kind of a bad look for the place of business and for now he already has an attorney because of the fact that he's in a custody battle with his in-laws and him and Eve's daughter. And Eve has passed away. Now, mind you, this whole thing is being like retold from the dog, Enzo, and what the dog is like seeing and how he interprets things. He's a very smart dog. So the dog is at the shop with him that particular day when the police come and arrest him. And so Denny followed their instructions and placed his hands on the counter and spread his legs. The cops patted him down thoroughly. Please turn around and place your hands behind your back, the cop said. You don't need handcuffs, Craig said angrily. That's Denny's boss. He's not running anywhere. Sir, the cop barked. Hold. Denny turned and placed his hands behind his back. The officer cuffed him. You have the right to remain silent, the cop said. Anything you say can and will be held against you. How long is this going to take? Denny asked. I have to pick up my daughter. I suggest you make other arrangements, the police officer said. I can pick her up, Denny, Mike said. You're not on the list of approved pickup people. So who should I call? An attorney will be appointed to you. Call Mark Fine, Denny said, desperate. He's in the computer. Do you understand these rights as I have read them to you? Do you need me to bail you out? Craig asked. Whatever you need. I have no idea what I need, Denny said. Call Mark. Maybe he can pick up Zoe. Do you understand the rights as I have read them to you? I understand, Denny snapped. Yes, I understand. What are you being arrested for? Mike asked. Denny looked to the officers, but they said nothing. They waited for Denny to answer the question. They were well trained in the sophisticated methods of breaking down a subject. Make him voice his own crime. Rape of a child in the third degree, Denny said. That was stupid. If I was him, I wouldn't have said shit like that because he didn't do that. Felony rape, one of the cops clarified. He should have just said he didn't know, you know? But I didn't rape anyone, Denny said to the cop. Who's behind this? What child? There was a long pause. The people in the lobby were rapt. It means like, you know, they had his attention. Here's the thing though. Like, so say the cops come and they start, you know, talking to you about, oh, murder or something, right? Because you're somebody you know very close, like your wife or something, is found dead. And they're questioning you and everything. A lot of the crime shows that I see, they'll be like, well, you know, one of the suspicious things about them was that they didn't even ask why they were there, right? But I see how that is suspicious. Like, if you're not saying, you know, if you're already talking, like, if you know what's going on, either way you look at it, you're up shit's creek. Because if you look at even when they're reading your rights, right? They're like, the right to remain silent, anything you can Anything you say can and will be held against you in a court of law, right? So that doesn't even make sense. Anything you say can and will be held against you in a court of law. So even if you say, I didn't do it, it will be held against you in a court of law. So him even saying that he knows why he's being arrested, that seems to me pretty stupid. But anyway, there was a long pause. The people in the lobby were at attention. Denny was standing before them all, his hands bound behind his back. They could all see how he was a prisoner now. He had no use of his hands now. He could not race a car now. All attention was on the police and their blue-gray shirts and their black guns, sticks, wands, and leather packets wrapped around their waists. It was true. It was true drama. Everyone wanted to know the answer to the question. What child? The one you raped, the cop replied simply. I despised him for what he was doing. Now remember, that's the dog talking. But I had to admire his dramatic flair. Without another word, the police took Denny away. Much of what happened to Denny regarding the custody suit concerning Zoe, as well as the criminal charges of rape of a child in the third degree, was not witnessed by me. These events spanned close to 3 years of our lives, as one of the tactics of Maxwell and Trish was to drag out the process in order to deplete Denny of money and destroy his will, as well as to play off his desire to see Zoe mature in a loving and supportive environment. I was denied access to much information. I was not invited to attend any of the legal proceedings. For instance, I was not allowed to attend. I'm sorry. I was allowed to attend only a few of the meetings Denny had with his attorney, Mark Fine, specifically those that occurred at Victrola Coffee, because Mark Fine had a fancy for the barista with the pierced eyebrow and the dark chocolate eyes. I did not accompany Denny. I feel like I'm skipping later. Okay. To the police station after his arrest. I was not present for his booking, his arraignment, or his subsequent lie detector test. Much of what I will tell you about the ordeal that followed Eve's death is a reconstruction based on information compiled by me from secondhand knowledge, overheard conversations, and established legal practices as I have gleaned from various television shows, most especially the Law and Order series and its spin-off. You have to remember this is the dog telling the story, so to me, that's what kind of makes it humorous because the dog watches that much TV. Special Victims Unit, Criminal Intent, and the much maligned trial by jury. Further details regarding police mythology and terminology are based on two of the very best television shows in the history of the genre. The Rockford Files, starring James Garner, who also starred in the excellent racing film Grand Prix. And of course, the greatest of all police dramas, Columbo, starring the fabulous and exceptionally clever Peter Falk in the title role. My sixth favorite actor is Peter Falk. And finally, my knowledge of the courtroom is based solely on the work of the greatest of all courtroom dramatists, Sidney Lumet, whose many films, including The Verdict and 12 Angry Men, have influenced me tremendously, which is kind of funny because, he's a dog. And as a side note, I would say that his casting of Al Pacino in Dog Day Afternoon was nothing short of inspiring. My intent here is to tell our story in a dramatically truthful way. While the facts may be less than accurate, please understand that the emotion is true, the intent is true, and dramatically speaking, intention is everything. Okay, so now chapter 34 is like a dramatization of what the dog uh, kind of imagines that Denny went through during his whole, 3 years of being arrested and all that shit. The whole court thing. So, chapter 34. They took him to a small room with a large table and many chairs. The walls were perforated with windows that looked out to the surrounding office, which was filled with police detectives doing their police work at their desks, just like on Law and Order. Wooden blinds filtered the blue light that crept into the room, rippling the table and floor with long shadows. No one bothered him. A bad cop didn't pull his ears or hit him with a telephone directory or smash his fingers in the door or smack his head against the chalkboard as often happens on television. No. After being booked and fingerprinted and photographed, he was put in the room alone and left there as if the police had forgotten him entirely. He sat by himself. He sat for hours with nothing. Now, also, the dog's also basing this on little things that he's heard over conversations with, his owner, Denny, conversations he's having. With no water, no restrooms, no radio, no distractions. His crime and his punishment and himself alone. Did he despair? Did he silently berate himself for allowing himself to be in that situation? Or did he finally realize what it's like to be me, to be a dog? Did he understand, as those interminable minutes ticked by, that being alone is not the same as being lonely? That being alone is a neutral state? It is like a blind fish at the bottom of the ocean, without eyes and therefore without judgment. Is it possible that which is around me does not affect my mood? My mood affects that which is around me. Is it true? Could Denny have possibly appreciated the subjective nature of loneliness, which is something that exists only in the mind, not in the world, and, like a virus, it is unable to survive without a willing host? I like to think that he was alone for that time, but that he wasn't lonely. I like to think that he thought about his condition, but that he did not despair. And then Mark Fine burst into the East Precinct on Seattle's Capitol Hill. He burst in and began shouting. That is Mark Fine's style. Bombastic, boisterous, bold. Mark Fine is the capital letter B. He is shaped like the letter, and he acts like the letter. Brash, brazen, bullish, bellowing. He blew down the door, bull rushed the desk, blasted the sergeant on duty, and bailed out Denny. That's funny because, as this live stream that I'm doing, there's another live stream that is by someone, I'm just going to say, is by someone named Bobbles. And it's so funny because that's kind of cool. Like, that, the channel. I'm not, I'm not like not a fan of, I'm like, okay, I like Bobbles the person, but she does what she does. That's the same as if, like, say she had a job working at a sewer plant or whatever, right? I could still like Bobbles, but not like what she does for work. Because eventually, I think that YouTube will start paying off for her, and that basically she does do things that we don't see in order to create her show. She also keeps a time schedule. So it is like a job for her. Okay? It is. She doesn't call in sick to her live stream. So that, I like a lot of people on YouTube. I like people for the things that I like and that I admire in people, right? And that's what I choose to see. Okay? So when I just read that paragraph, it made me think of Bobbles because, how every word they said with a B kind of reminds me of Bobbles. I'm not, in no way is that any kind of an insult to, like, okay, so her person who was like her enemy or whatever. I can't even think of the word I'm trying to think of. Adversary, is that it? Maybe would be Sharon. I like Sharon as well. Different reasons of why I like bobbles. Yes, okay. Neither one of them I talk to on the phone or anything. Um, doesn't mean that I wouldn't be there for either one of them if they said, you know what, I just need someone to talk to, right? Any way they did it, any way they went about it, I'd hope it'd be by phone because I'm certain if it was like an emergency, that'd be the best way to get hold of me. All I'm saying is, let me get back to this, the bombastic and the boisterous and the bold, that, and the guy, is explaining that the attorney is a capital letter B. So I kind of feel like that, brash, brazen, bullish, but in a good way. It's not an insult. So that's a compliment. Okay. What the fuck is this all about, Dennis? Mark demanded on the street corner. It's nothing, Denny said, uninterested in the conversation. The fuck it is, a 15-year-old Dennis. The fuck it's nothing. She's lying. Is she? Did you have intercourse with this girl? No. Did you penetrate any of her orifices with your genitals or any other object? Denny stared at Mark Fine and refused to answer. See, that's the kind of stupid shit, though. He should just be like, hell no. This is part of a plan. Do you see that? Mark said, frustrated. I couldn't figure out why they would file a bogus custody suit, but this changes everything. Still, Denny said nothing. A pedophile? A sex offender? A statutory rapist? A child molester? Do these terms fit in anywhere in the concept of the best interest of a child? Denny ground his teeth. His jaw muscles bulged. My office, 8:30 tomorrow morning, Mark said. Don't be late. Denny burned. Where's Zoe? He demanded. Mark Fine dug his heel into the pavement. They got to her before I could, he said. The timing on this was not an accident. I'm going to get her, Denny said. Don't, Mark snapped. Let them be. Now is not the time for heroics. When you're stuck in quicksand, the worst thing you can do is struggle. So now I'm stuck in quicksand, Denny asked. Dennis, you are in the quickest of all possible stand right now. Denny wheeled around and started off. And don't leave the state, Mark called after him. And Jesus Christ, Dennis, don't even look at another 15-year-old girl. But Denny had already rounded the corner and was gone. See, that's what I'm saying, though. Him acting like he knew why he was being arrested almost makes him think that, could make somebody think that he did something that could border on the edge of something that could be interpreted as breaking the law. Chapter 35. Hands are the window to a man. Hands are the windows to a man's soul. Watch in-car videos of race drivers enough, and you'll see the truth of this statement. The rigid, tense grip of one driver reflects his rigid, tense driving style. The nervous hand shuffle of another driver proves how uncomfortable he is in the car. A driver's hands should be relaxed, sensitive, aware. Much information is communicated through the steering wheel of a car. Too tight or too nervous a grip will not allow the information to be communicated to the brain. They say that senses do not operate alone, but rather are combined together in a special part of the brain that creates a picture of the body as a whole. Sensors in the skin tell the brain about pressure, pain, heat. Sensors in the joints and tendons tell the brain about the body's position in space. Sensors in the ears track balance, and sensors in the internal organs indicate one's emotional state. To voluntarily restrict one channel of information is foolish for a racer. To allow information to flow unfettered is divine. Seeing Denny's hands shake was as upsetting for me as it was for him. After Eve's death, he glanced at his hands often, held them before his eyes as if they weren't really his hands at all, held them up and watched them shake. He tried to do it so no one would see. Nerves, he would say to me, whenever he caught me watching his manual examination. Stress. And then he would tuck them into his pants pocket and keep them there out of sight. That seems funny to me how, like, this person who, and even surgeons and stuff who depend on their hands cannot shake, how something that is not a physical ailment or something, but say losing a loved one or, something like that can also make their hands shake. It's kind of sad, that you can't control something that's a part of you. So I'll probably just finish this chapter and uh alright, so anyway, so it's handshaking, right? When Mike and Tony brought me home later that night, Denny was waiting on the dark porch with his hands in his pockets. Not only do I not want to talk about it, he said to them, Mark told me not to. So they stood on the walk looking up at him. Can we come in? Mike asked. No, Denny replied, and then aware of his abruptness, attempted to explain. I don't feel like company right now. They stared at him for a moment. You don't have to talk about what's going on, Mike said, but it's good to talk. You can't keep everything inside. It's not healthy. You're probably right, Denny said, but it's not how I operate. I just need to assimilate what's going on, and then I'll be able to talk, but not now. Neither Mike nor Tony moved. It was like they were deciding if they would respect Denny's request to be left alone, or if they would storm past him into the house and keep him company by force. They looked at each other, and I could smell their anxiety. I wished that Denny would understand the depth of their concern for him. You'll be all right, Mike asked. We don't have to worry about the gas oven being left on, you lighting a cigarette or something, right? It's electric, Denny said, and I don't smoke. He'll be all right, Tony said to Mike. You want us to keep Enzo or anything? Mike asked. No. Bring you some groceries? Denny shook his head. No. He'll be all right, Tony said again, and tugged at Mike's arm. My phone's always on, Mike said. 24 hours crisis hotline. Need to talk, need anything, just call me. They retreated down the walk. We fed Enzo, Mike called from the alley. They left, and Denny and I went inside. He took his hands from his pockets and held them up to look at them shaking. Rapists don't get custody of their little girls, he said. See how that works? I followed him into the kitchen. Now remember, it's the dog telling the story. For a moment, concerned that he had lied to Mike and Tony, and that perhaps we did have a gas oven after all. But he didn't go to the oven. He went to the cupboard and took out a glass. Then he reached into where he kept the liquor and took out a bottle. He poured a drink. It was absurd. Depressed, stressed, hands shaking, and now he was going to get himself drunk. I couldn't stand for it. I barked sharply at him. He looked down at me, drink in hand, and I up at him. If I'd had hands, I would have opened one of them up and slapped him with it. What's the matter, Enzo? Too much of a cliche for you? I barked again. Too much of a pathetic cliche for me. Don't judge me, he said. That's not your job. Your job is to support me, not judge me. Now remember, he's talking to his dog, so the dog didn't really call him a pathetic cliche. He drank the drink and then glared at me, and I did judge him. He was acting just as they wanted him to act. They were rattling him, and he was about to quit, and then it would be over, and I'd have to spend the rest of my life with a drunkard who had nothing to do but stare lifelessly out from dead eyes at pictures flashing by on the TV screen. This wasn't my Denny. This was a pathetic character from a hackneyed television drama, and I didn't like him at all. I left the room thinking I would go to bed, but I didn't want to sleep in the same room as this Denny imposter, this Denny facsimile. I went into Zoe's bedroom, curled up on the floor next to her bed, and tried to sleep. Zoe was the only one I had left. Later, though I don't know how much, he stood in the doorway. The first time I took you for a drive in my car, when you were a puppy, you puked all over the seat, he said to me. But I didn't give up on you. I lifted my head from the ground, not understanding his point. I put the booze away, he said. I'm better than that. He turned and walked away. I heard him shuffle around in the living room and then turn on the TV. So he didn't fall hopelessly into the bottle, the refuge of the weak. He got my point. Gestures are all that I have. I found him on the couch. Hi, King of Ipswich. I'm just reading. Remember, as told from the eyes of the dog. So when he says I, he means himself, Enzo. I found him on the couch watching a video of Eve, Zoe, and me. Now remember, Eve passed away, his wife. Zoe is his daughter, which they took away, the in laws, after the wife died. And Enzo is the dog, and he's the one telling the story. And Denny is the husband. He's really in a bad way right now. I saw him on the couch watching a video of Eve, Zoe, and me from years ago when we went to Long Beach on the Washington coast. Zoe was a toddler. I remembered that weekend well. We were all so young, it seemed, chasing kites on that wide beach that went on for miles. I sat next to the couch and watched too. We were so naive. We had no knowledge of where the road would take us, no idea that we would ever be separated. The beach, the ocean, the sky, it was there for us and only for us, a world without end. No race has ever been won in the first corner, he said, but plenty of races have been lost there. I looked at him. He reached out, settled his hand on the crown of my head, and scratched my ear like he has always done. That's right, he said to me. If we're going to be a cliche, let's be a positive cliche. Yes, the race is long. To finish first you must finish. Yes, reading now because I can't return this book until I finish it. And there's other, the story. Yeah, it's a good book. So if you're not doing anything and you want to just listen, I'm just trying to get through it before I got to return it to the library. It's called The Art of Racing in the Rain, and it's chapter 36. And there's, his wife died, Denny's wife died, and Enzo is whatever kind of dog you want to make him in your mind. In the book, he's a yellow lab, and he's had him since he was a puppy. Then he met Eve, married her. They had a daughter, Zoe, and then Eve passed away, and Zoe got taken away by the in-laws because he got accused of a fake statutory rape thing, but he didn't do anything. He hadn't done it. So now, he doesn't have Zoe. It's gone on for 3 years. It's just told from the eyes of the dog. So, okay. I love very few things more than a nice long walk in the drizzle rain of Seattle. I don't care for the heaviness of real rain. I like the misting, the feeling of the tiny droplets on my muzzle and eyelashes, the freshness of the air, which has been suddenly infused with ozone and negative ions. While rain is heavy and it can suppress the same scent, a light shower actually amplifies smells. That's true, isn't it? A light shower, a light mist is nice. It releases the molecule, brings odor to life, and then carries it through the air in my nose, which is why I love Seattle more than any other place, even Thunder Hill Raceway Park. Denny likes to race cars, so the dog uses a lot of racing metaphors, and the dog also watches a lot of TV. He uses a lot of examples. Because while the summers are very dry, once the damp season begins, nary a day goes by without a helping of my much loved drizzle. Denny took me for a walk in the drizzle rain, and I relished it. Eve has only been dead for a few. Oh, Eve had only been dead for a few days, but since her death, I felt so bottled up and congested, sitting with Denny in the house for much of the time, breathing the same stale air over and over. Denny seemed to crave the change too. Instead of jeans, a sweatshirt, and a yellow slicker, he put on a pair of dark slacks and he wore his black trench coat over a high neck cashmere sweater. We walked north out of Madison Valley and into the auditorium. I've never been to Seattle. I wouldn't mind going there though. Once past the dangerous part, where there is no walkway and the cars drive well over the safe speed limit, we turned off on a smaller road and Denny released me from my leash. This is what I love to do. I love to run through a field of wet grass. Hi. Hi, Minnie. Zombie Queen. Lucas. Oh, that's Lucas. You know what? Thank you, you guys. I'm just here and I'm just reading, trying to finish this book off, The Art of Racing in the Rain. You know, um, I don't want to return it to the library without finishing it. So, and I'm like at chapter 34. So remember, everybody, it is told from the eyes of the dog. It's a great, great book. And the dog is just talking about, all right, um, the dog is just like, you know, just a regular dog that somebody got when it was a puppy and it's just relaying watching this family's life and what's happened. And so oh, Lucas, awesome. That's what threw me off. I was like, "Oh, yeah, first. I mean, I hope it's not boring anybody. I feel like it's a catch-22 for me. Like, I've already read the book multiple times. It's, I feel like it's written beautifully. I love the written word. Um, and I love libraries and I love the smell of books. I'm a big reading fan. And so I got all the way up to chapter 32 and then started getting notices from the library that I got to return it because I've had it long enough. But then for some reason, I just kind of stopped reading it. And then tonight I thought, well, you know what? Because today I was driving thinking to myself, okay, let's think about this. I got another notice. So I was like, let's think about this. Do I want to return it and not finish it or finish it, whether or not anybody listens? And I was like, I got to finish it because even if one person is waiting for me to finish, because I've been doing it in different videos for a different amount of time and got up to chapter 32, like I said, and say there was one person who actually goes back and rewatches those, and I stop reading it, then that's pretty messed up. So, and even just for my own enjoyment, I really love this story. So here we go. So he took him out walking and let him go off his leash. This is what I love to do. I love to run through a field of wet grass that has not been mowed recently. I love to run, keeping my snout low to the ground so the grass and the sparkles of water cover my face. Remember, it's a dog. I imagine myself as a vacuum cleaner, sucking in all the smells, all the life, a spear of summer grass. It reminds me of my childhood. back on the farm in Spangle, where there was no rain, but there was grass, there were fields, and I ran. I ran and I ran that day. And Denny walked on, trudging steadily. At the point where we usually turn around, we kept going. We crossed the pedestrian bridge and curled up into Montlick. Denny reattached my leash, and we crossed a larger road, and we were in a new park. I loved this one too, but it was different. Interlaken, Denny said to me as he unleashed me. Interlaken. This park was not fields and flatland. It was a gnarled and twisty ravine, painted with vines and bushes and ground cover, tented by the tallest of trees and a canopy of leaves. It was wonderful. As Denny followed the path, I bounded up and down the hillside, hiding in the low brush and pretending I was a secret agent, or running as fast as I could through the obstacles and pretending I was a predator, like in the movies, hunting something down, tracking my prey. For a long time, we walked and ran in this park, me running 5 paces for every one of Denny's, until I was exhausted and thirsty. We emerged from the park and walked in a neighborhood that was foreign to me. Denny stopped in a cafe to purchase a cup of coffee for himself. He bought some water for me, which was in a paper cup and difficult to drink, but it was fine nonetheless. As and we continued walking. I have always loved activity and walking, especially with Denny, my favorite walking partner, and especially in the drizzle. But I have to admit, at that time, I was getting quite tired. We had been out for more than 2 hours, and after a long walk like that, I like to go home for a playful toweling off and then settling down for a nice long nap. But there was no nap. We kept walking. I recognized 15th Avenue when we reached it, and I knew Volunteer Park quite well. But I was surprised when we went into Lakeview Cemetery. Of course, I knew the importance of Lakeview Cemetery, though I had never been there. I had seen a documentary on Bruce Lee. Lakeview is where he is buried alongside his son Brandon, who was a wonderful actor until his untimely death. I feel very badly for Brandon Lee because he fell victim to the family curse, but also because the last film he made was The Crow, an unfortunate title for an unfortunate film based on a comic book written by someone who clearly had no idea of the real nature of crows. But that's a discussion for another time. We entered the cemetery and we did not seek out the graves of Bruce and Brandon Lee, two very fine actors. We sought something else. Following the paved road to the north, we looped around the central hill and came upon a temporary tent structure under which many people were assembled. They were all dressed nicely, and those who weren't protected from the drizzle by the tent were holding umbrellas. Immediately, I saw Zoe. Ah, the light switch. It's either on or it's off. Denny had dressed for the event. We approached the people, who were slightly disorganized, milling about, their collective attention fragmented. The proceedings had not yet begun. We got very close to them, and then suddenly someone broke off from the group. A man, and then another man, and then another. The three of them walked towards us. One of them was Maxwell. The others were Eve's brothers, whose names I never knew because they showed themselves so infrequently. You're not welcome here. That's so that's rotten to tell the husband he's not welcome at the funeral of his wife, Maxwell said sternly. She's my wife, Denny said calmly. The mother of my child. She was there, the child. Zoe saw her father. She waved at him, and he waved back. You're not welcome here, Maxwell said again. Leave, or I'll call the police. The two brothers raised themselves. Pre-battle posturing. You already called them, didn't you? Denny asked. Michael sneered at Denny. I'm sorry, Maxwell. Maxwell sneered at Denny. That's Eve's father, his father-in-law. You were warned, he said. Why are you doing this? God, that's so rotten to do that to somebody. Maxwell pushed up into Denny's personal space. You've never been good to Eve, Maxwell said, and with what you did to Annika, I will not trust you with Zoe. Nothing happened that night, but Maxwell had already turned. Please escort Mr. Swift away from here, he said to his two sons, and he abruptly walked away. In the distance, I saw Zoe. Unable to contain herself any longer, she jumped out of her seat and ran towards us. Beat it, one of the men said. It's my wife's funeral, Denny said. I'm staying. Get the hell out of here, the other man said, jabbing Denny in the ribs. Punch me if you want, Denny said. I won't fight back. Child molester, the first man hissed, but Denny didn't do anything, flinging his hands into Denny's chest. Denny didn't budge. A man who drives a 2,000-pound car at 170 miles per hour does not get flustered by the honking of the geese. Zoe reached us and leapt at Denny. He hoisted her into the air and propped her on his hip and kissed her cheek. How's my baby? He asked. How's my daddy? She replied. I'm getting by, he said. He turned to the brother who had just pushed him. Sorry, I didn't catch what you just said. Maybe you'd like to repeat it in front of my daughter. The man took a step back, and then Trish rushed up to us. That's Eve's mother, his mother-in-law. She inserted herself between Denny and the brothers. She told them to leave, and she turned to Denny. Please, she said. I understand why you're here, but it can't be done like this. I really don't think you should stay. She hesitated for a moment, and then she said, I'm sorry. You must be so alone. Denny didn't respond. I looked up at him, and his eyes were full of tears. Zoe noticed too, and started crying with him. It's okay to cry, she said. Grandma says crying helps because it washes away the hurting. He looked at Zoe for a long moment, and she at him, and then he sighed sadly. You help Grandma and Grandpa be strong, okay? He said. I have some important business to take care of. About Mommy. There are things that have to be done. I know, she said. You'll stay with Grandma and Grandpa for a little bit longer, until I get everything worked out, okay? They told me I might stay with them for a while. Well, he said regretfully, Grandma and Grandpa are very good at thinking ahead. We can all compromise, Trish said. I know you're not a bad person. There is no compromise, Denny said. Given time, you'll see. It's what's best for Zoe. Enzo! Zoe called out suddenly, locating me beneath her. She squirmed loose of Denny and grabbed me around the neck. Enzo! I was surprised and pleased by her hearty greeting, so I licked her face. Trish leaned into Denny. You must have been missing Eve terribly, she whispered to him. But to take advantage of a 15-year-old girl? Hi, Ben. Denny abruptly straightened and pulled away from her. Zoe, he said, Enzo and I are going to watch from a special spot. Come on, Enzo. He bent down and kissed her forehead, and we walked away. Zoe and Trish watched us go. We continued on the circular path and walked up the bump of a hill to the top, where we stood underneath the trees and, protected from the lightly falling rain, watched the whole thing. The people coming to attention, the man reading from a book, the people laying roses on the coffin, and everyone leaving in their cars. We stayed. We waited for the workers who came and dismantled the tent. The workers who came and used a strange winch device to lower the coffin into the ground. We stayed. We watched the men with their little caterpillars as they shoveled all the dirt over her. We waited. When they were all gone, we walked down the hill and we stood before the mound of dirt. That's so sad. and we cried. Such a good book. We kneeled and we cried, and we grabbed at handfuls of the dirt, the mound, and we felt the last bit of her, the last part of her that we could feel, and we cried. And finally, when we could do no more, we stood and we began the long walk home. That's so sad. Chapter 37. Sorry, I get like emotional with this. I get all emotions with this book. Funny, sad, mad. It's just a good book. Chapter 37. The morning after Eve's funeral, I could barely move. My body was so stiff, I couldn't even stand. Now remember, this is the dog talking. And Denny had to look for me because I usually got up immediately and helped him with breakfast. I was 8 years old, 2 years older than Zoe, though I felt much more like her uncle than her brother. Isn't that weird how your pets surpass you? You know, that's so weird. While I was still too young to suffer an arthritic condition in my hip, that's exactly what I suffered from. Degenerative arthritis caused by hip dysplasia. It was an unpleasant condition, yes, but in a sense, it was a relief that I could concentrate on my own difficulties rather than dwell on other things that preoccupied my thoughts, specifically Zoe being stranded with the twins. He calls Eve's parents, the dog does, the twins. Zoe is the daughter of Denny. Denny is the owner. I was quite young when I understood that my hips were abnormal. I had spent most of my first months of my life running and playing with Denny, just the two of us, and so I had little opportunity to compare myself with other dogs. They do say that a lot of the like yellow labs and stuff like that have hip problems. When I was old enough to frequent dog parks, I realized that keeping my hind legs together in my gait, though much more comfortable for me, was an obvious sign that my hips were defective. The last thing I wanted was to be seen as a misfit, so I trained myself to walk and run in certain ways to disguise my defects. So I guess if anybody has like a lab or a golden retriever, like those kind of dogs, check out the way they walk, their gait must have something to do with their gait. As I matured and not defective, but I mean like a hip dysplasia or whatever. As I matured and the protective cartilage at the ends of my bones wore away, as cartilage tends to do, the pain became more acute, and instead of complaining, I tried to hide my problem. Perhaps I have always been more like Eve than I've ever admitted, for I distrusted the medical world immensely, and I found ways to compensate for my disability so I could avoid a diagnosis that would undoubtedly hasten my demise. That's true, right? Usually medical diagnoses do hasten your demise, that's for sure, once the seed is planted. As I mentioned, I do not know the source of Eve's distrust of medicine. The origins of my distrust, however, are all too clear. When I was just a pup, not more than a week or two old, the alpha man on the farm in Spangle introduced me to a friend of his. The man held me in his lap and petted me, feeling my forelegs at length. They should come off, he said to the alpha man. I'll hold him, the alpha man said. He needs anesthetic. Well, you should have called me last week. I'm not wasting my money on a dog, Doc. Oh, so he's having like a flashback of when he was a puppy before he got sold. Okay. I'm not wasting my money on a dog, Doc, the alpha man said. Cut. I had no idea what they were talking about, but then the alpha man gripped me tightly around my midsection. The other man, Doc, took hold of my right paw and with shiny scissors that glinted in the sunlight, snipped off my right dew claw. I thought you weren't supposed to touch dogs, dew claws. That's what I thought that I heard. For all I know, they could be even watching me on a channel right now, making fun of me. Isn't that so funny? Whatever, let 'em. Here. If anybody knows what a dew claw is, let me know. You hear my dog? I do know what a dew claw is. No, I know what a dew claw is. What I'm saying is, I thought you weren't supposed to like remove it from the dog or something. I always thought that would cause them like really, really bad injury. But anyway, so the other man, I took hold of my right paw and with shiny scissors that glinted in the sunlight, snipped off my right dew claw, my right thumb. The pain blazed through my body, a racking, shattering pain. It was bloody and horrible, and I cried out. I struggled mightily to free myself, but the alpha man squeezed me so tightly I could barely breathe. Then Doc took hold of my left paw and, without hesitating for a moment, cut off my left thumb. Click. I remember that, perhaps more than the pain. The sound, click, so loud, and then the blood was everywhere. The pain was so intense, it left me shivering and weak. Later, Doc applied salve to my wounds and wrapped my forelegs tightly and whispered to me, "It's a mean bastard who won't pay for a little local anesthetic for his pup." Do you see? This is why I distrust them. It's a mean bastard who will do the cutting without anesthetic because he wants to get paid. Wow. Wow. That's really something that the dog thinks. The guy says to him, like as if it makes the guy, that doctor, it makes him in his mind feel better by whispering to the dog, "It's a mean bastard that won't pay for a little anesthetic for a pup," right? But the dog says to himself, "It's a mean bastard who does it because he won't get paid." Like he did it without the anesthesia. If it wasn't that much and it was just a little local anesthetic, right? Just a little local anesthetic. And he thinks to himself, "Yeah, what a jerk. He can't even pay that minimal amount." But that guy can't think to himself, "Well, if he's going to be a jerk, at least I can be nice because I have the local anesthetic. I'm the one who's going to administer it." So at the end of the day, it was really up to the doctor. But the doctor wouldn't do it if he wouldn't get paid. Wow. What a smart dog, huh? The day after Eve's funeral, Denny took me to the vet, a thin man who smelled of hay and who had a bottomless pocket full of treats. He felt my hips and I tried not to wince. Yeah, it sure would, right? That's what I think too, Lucas. Uh, he felt my hips and I tried not to wince, but I couldn't help myself when he squeezed certain places. He diagnosed me, prescribed anti-inflammatory medication, and said there was nothing else he could do except someday in the future perform expensive surgery to replace my defective part. Denny thanked the man and drove me home. "You have hip dysplasia," he said to me. If I'd had fingers, I'd have shoved them into my ears until I burst my own eardrums. Anything to avoid hearing. "Hip dysplasia," he repeated, shaking his head in amazement. I shook my head too. Remember, this is the dog. I shook my head too. With my diagnosis, I knew would come my end. Slowly, perhaps. Painfully, without a doubt. Marked by the signpost laid out by the veterinarian. The visible becomes inevitable. The car goes where the eyes go. Whatever the trauma that led to Eve's distrust of medicine, I was able to see only the effect. She had been unable to look away from where the others had told her to look. It is a rare person who can hear the blunt authority of a terminal diagnosis, refuse to accept it, and choose a different path. I thought of Eve and how quickly she embraced her death once the people around her agreed to it. I considered the foretelling of my own end, which was to be full of suffering and pain, as death is believed to be by most of the world, and I tried to look away. Chapter 38. Because of the criminal charges against Denny, the twins had been granted a temporary restraining order that meant pending challenge in court. Denny didn't get to see Zoe at all for several months. Minutes after he was arrested, Maxwell and Trish filed a motion to terminate Denny's right to a custody of any kind, since he was clearly an unfit parent, a pedophile, a sex offender. Well, we all play by the same rules. It's just that some people spend more time reading those rules and figuring out how to make them work in their behalf. And that is very true. That is very true. Very true. I have, that was have all your ducks in a row, have all your I's dotted and your T's crossed. Yep, I watched it tonight. I watched it tonight. Someone who had all their I's dotted, their T's crossed, their ducks in a row, and someone who didn't read. And the result, it was like right in motion, and I was just hoping it wouldn't be. And it was too late before. I mean, the last thing she read was by me, and then it was a boom, blank screen on. She wasn't listening. You know, not everybody is out to get you, and sometimes other people, they may appear that they're um, you know, doing things to hurt you, but they're doing things really in a way that is helping you, and they're not doing it inadvertently. Like, they're not doing it without knowing what they're doing, right? Now you have to remember this, okay? This I'm pointing out and not saying any names, okay? So you got person A, person B, right? So person B and person C argue, right? Person A, is kind of neutral, likes both, whatever. Not, whatever it is for the person A, right? Kind of on the outside, not looking to hurt anybody. And at the end of the day, I don't know that I think anybody is. Because here's the thing. When somebody says, if you do this, you're going to get in trouble because of this, right? Somebody says that to you. Now, they haven't done it, but they say it. Now, what happens then is you take that ball that's now in your court, okay? They've given you that, and they tell you why. They say, because this will happen, okay? Now, here's something that you must remember. If you never heard of it before, means you might want to look into it, right? Because the particular thing that I'm talking about that they mentioned, right, is you type it in and Wow. Wow. Let's go like that to the person who actually is really, smart. Like, wow, boom. Right? Now, here we are. We all have doubts, right? Okay. Like, how harsh is it? Well, here's the thing. Do you want to find out how harsh it is? Okay? Because you look it up, you see, you find out what it is. You look it up, you see, and then you know what you do? You say, wow, thank you for that. And I don't mean in any kind of a derogatory, sarcastic manner. That was a pearl of information right there. Okay? They gave you and anybody else who paid attention to that, anyone else who has a YouTube channel, they gave a pearl of information right there. Even myself, I had never heard of that. Okay? What it is called, I'm not even going to say. I'm going to do more studying on it so that I know exactly what I'm saying. But the gist of what I got was this was it's something that it never quite, you gotta be on your toes, on your toes to look at that, right? I'll say it. Watermark, YouTube videos, watermark. Okay? That is having your I's dotted, your T's crossed, your ducks in a row. Okay? And no matter how many times I tried to shout out to you and say to you, even prior when I said it, I saw, okay, well, look at this and this, this. And she said, you hear that? Motorcycle so loud. Hi. She said herself about like intelligence and somebody more or less saying, look, just look, okay? Nobody's stupid here, right, Sharon? Right? The last moment, the last thing you were reading was what I was saying to you. Don't be suspicious of everyone. And even the people that you're suspicious of might sometimes throw you a bone. Read. Read. Now with the phone in your hands, right? We all got the phone in our hand. Takes nothing to type in watermark. Now, from what I understand, that's a person who was in school for law, legal things, law, right? You know what they do? Especially like paralegals or legal investigators. Anybody dealing with any kind of court battle is going to be reading and researching. Hello, Spectacular is going to be reading. Which there's that key word again. Let's never forget reading. Reading is fundamental. Okay? Reading is fundamental. Because even if you're on the computer, if you're researching something, you're reading. Reading, researching, remembering, reminding, rewriting, reiterating. You know? No, not me. I'm not talking about. I'm talking to. Don't be suspicious of everybody. You know? I mean, What I'm trying to say is, when she told you you can play my audio, but you can't play my video, and she said because they're watermarked, I guarantee you the majority of people didn't know what she meant by that. Neither did I. I'm not even saying I did, but I looked it up, and she's right, and you saw tonight. And I'm trying to yell out to you, don't. She's serious as a heart attack, because watermarks are as serious as a heart attack, and it's a free app because it's an old thing. Most people wouldn't even consider it at all. That is a sign of somebody who that was their passion. They're looking for dotting every I, crossing every T, and having all their ducks in a row. Now, here's the thing. She basically told you how you can make her stop showing crotch shots out of you and showing your videos. Okay? She told you it's not stop talking, it's not get my name out of it, it's none of that. She told you how to do it. You saw her example tonight, right? Now, pull the trigger. And I don't mean that in like a serious way. This is the thing sometimes I think. I think that the phrase "there's honor among thieves" is uh it's there's certain, it's not even about being thieves. It means like even, loyalty amongst the wolves even. What it is respectable quality in people. She told you how to stop her from showing crotch shots of you and everything else. And it's a free app. It's a free app. I don't know who Weedy B is. I don't know who you're talking about, Weedy B. Weedy B. I don't get what that means. All I'm saying is, yeah, I like people, and I like to. I don't always necessarily like people enough to be hanging out with them or doing this or doing that, but nobody hangs out anymore, right? I don't even hang out with people I know personally, right? I don't even know if I want to. I actually enjoy YouTube more. Here's the truth. Kafka, no, I have not. What is Kafka? Is that like a Heel Gibran? Oh, no, you're Frank Kafka. No, I do not. Franz Kafka. I like everybody on YouTube except for I don't care for Tom Reed, and I don't care for somebody else. One other person. One other person. Who is this? Is this really secular? Why would you be in here as this? Did I block you as secular human already? You already blew it as that way, so now you're spectacular human. You're so fine. See? And I didn't even say that. Come on, man. Who is the other person? Yeah, I'll tell you who it is. You want to know who it is? Nah. Fuck it. It's Jules. I just, like, it's not. Nah, me and Ollie won't ever be friends. But I'm not gonna lie to you. I can find likable qualities in Ollie. If I can find likable qualities in somebody, then here's the thing, okay? Oh, you didn't even say hello, Sean Mac. And now you're saying goodbye? You say, like, I say hello, and you say goodbye. Why? Don't know why I say hello, you say goodbye, and make me cry. I look great. What are you looking at me at? Oh my god. Secular, when did you get that drone that you're flying outside my window? I knew it. I knew it wasn't a bird. I look great. You should see how I feel. Just kidding. Oh, it is. And you go by such a strict rule, huh, Sean? Sean, you're like fucking on your own little the video you did in the mirror. I didn't do a video in a mirror. The video I did in the mirror. The hell are you talking about? The video I did in the mirror. Did I do a video in a mirror? Oh my god, I released that one. Is that the one with my skirt blowing up and no underwear on? That sucks. That was my Marilyn Monroe. I'm I'm so shocked I did that. Remember when JWJ told you Ollie was the YouTube guru who, and she started talking about the excellent topic, and she started talking about this excellent. No, I remember when JWJ told me Ollie was well, she didn't tell me Ollie was the YouTube guru. She said she knew somebody who knew all about YouTube and could, you know, probably help me out with what I was going through. Thing is, though, they ended up, this person, or JWJ, ended up befriending the person who was causing me all the grief at the time and giving them this venue and pulling them into the circle and giving them a soapbox, like somewhere where they could stand on or whatever, a venue. It doesn't matter. I don't even care. Like, this is the bottom line. Here's the thing. All right. If there was no Ollie, then there would be no Jim Marshall's video. Jim Marshall's wife, right? With that puppet of Ollie, and she goes, "Hungry eyes. I know y'all love it when I sing, right?" That video makes me laugh. Not at Ollie. In fact, I actually feel a little jealous of Ollie because I want a fucking puppet. Okay. I prefer it with hair, but whatever. If they gotta gradually do, the hair that I have now and then another hair and then a different hairstyle, whatever. They could change it around. Whatever they want to do. Honestly though, that's fucking that's cool. Somebody makes a video like that about them, I'd be showing people that for the rest of my life. I'd want them to play that at my funeral. I'm telling you, not only that, but even if they made like a number of them with, my voice in the background and this puppet of me just doing like really fucking funny things. Spectacular Human. Did you see it? It's on Jim Marshall's wife. That's the name of the channel. And it's something rocking it in PEI or something like that. Oh my god. So funny. Ollie is funny. I'm gonna tell you something. I had a live stream one time. Yeah. This wasn't too long ago. And Ollie was in it in the live stream. I had tears rolling down my face. People still the people who were here. Like, I mean, it wasn't like it was like loads of people were in the live stream, but the people, because it was late night and going into like early morning, the people that were here still talk about how much laughing. Oh my god, fuck, hysterical. X talks about it. Rachel Reed. I think about it all the time. Ollie was hysterical. She's very funny, very quick witted, and I really thought that the Ollie that that I liked was actually taking the dominant, becoming more dominant in the Ollie as a whole person. Oh God, please, it's so funny. I could watch that 3 times a day, every day. It is hysterical. Hungry eyes. One look at you and I'm in tight. I'm in tight, she says. Not the one that I did. The one I couldn't even compare to that. That is like dememorialized. Somebody makes a freaking puppet of you. Figures out how to have your cigarette all broken. I mean, were those car screeching sounds, were they real? Or was that like sound effect? The way the puppet goes, I am jealous of you, and I'm not lying. I'm jealous of you. I'm not lying. That is in my top 5 of the best videos on YouTube. That would make you famous. I'm telling you right now. You should frickin' push that video out because that video is hysterical. You should talk to Jim Marshall's wife, and if that's like a real person or whatever, I don't know who it is. There used to be one on that channel too that was like this Barbie doll. Oh my gosh, so funny. Some people are so talented with videos. I can't. I'm not as good as other people when it comes to, you know, um, doing. I gotta get another device or something. But where? How does it? A puppet? Oh my god! Why? I even want to go watch it again right now. If I had another device, I would play it on my live stream. It is the best. You are totally P. Oh my god, that's awesome. Honey, come on now, I'll drop the link. I'll drop the link. Hold on. I know you guys are all dying for it. I gotta watch it too again myself. It's too funny to not watch. I can't tell you guys. It brings a smile to my face. Not in a bad way. I'm not trying to be mean because I'm seriously, seriously jealous that I don't have a puppet made of me. Tripping in PEI. The best thing ever right here. Not being mean. I'm so not being mean. Look, I'm posting this link right here. This is the funniest, the best thing going right now. Did it show up? I'm gonna watch it too. It's a minute and a half long, okay? It's a minute and a half long. I'll be right back. It's the funniest. I could watch it at least 6 times a day. Okay, so I'm 49 minutes into it. Not 49 minutes, 49 seconds, 41 seconds into it. Is this not the funniest shit ever? Seriously. Be right back. Isn't that funny? Isn't that really funny? Yeah, really? Hi, can you guys hear me? They're gonna put me in the movie. Maybe not. Isn't that the funniest shit though ever? That's awesome. That's creepy puppet. If you get a puppet of yourself though with a Muppet vibe, well that'd be cool too. Puppet of myself. I don't know. There's a lot of dolls that are kind of creepy anyway, right? Dolls are kind of creepy, you know. So, Lucas, should I continue on with the art of racing in the rain or what? I wicked have to fucking finish this. I mean, really bad. Oh my god, look at that page just ripped a little bit. Oh my god, I didn't do that. Who did that? My dog. Remember, because we were like at chapter 38, and and Denny had gotten, like the in-laws had gotten a temporary restraining order so that Denny didn't get to see the daughter at all. Minutes after he was arrested, they filed a motion calling him a sex offender. And oh yeah, okay, I'm working on their behalf. Okay. And I've seen movies that involve, remember, this is all told from the eyes of the dog Enzo. This is the art of racing in the rain. chapter 38, okay? Wait, okay, okay. I have seen movies that involve abducted children and the grief and terror that suffocate the parents when their children are taken by strangers. Denny felt every bit of that grief, and in my own way, I did too. And we all knew where Zoe was. We knew who had taken her, and still we could do nothing. Mark Fine, who is Denny's attorney, suggested it would be inflammatory to tell Zoe about the legal proceedings, and he suggested that Denny invent a story about driving race cars in Europe to explain his prolonged absence. Mark Fine also negotiated a letter exchange. Notes and drawings made by Zoe would be delivered to Denny, and Denny could write letters to his child as long as he agreed to allow those letters to be censored by his in-laws' attorneys. I will tell you, every vertical surface in our house was decorated with Zoe's delightful artwork, and many long nights were spent by Denny and me crafting the letters we sent to Zoe, telling of Denny's exploits on the European race circuit. Which that's pretty fucked up that, he has to be advised to lie to his kid that he's racing and lie to them, and then probably someday she's gonna find out that he really wasn't, and hopefully she'll understand why he had to do that. As much as I wanted Denny to act, to lash out against the establishment in a bold and passionate way, I respected his restraint. Denny had long admired the legendary driver Emerson Fittipaldi. Emo, as he was called by his peers, was a champion of great stature and consistency, and was known for his pragmatism, you know what I mean, on the track. Taking chances is not a good idea if choosing wrong may send you into a wall at Indy. Twist your car into a fiery metal sculpture that emergency workers struggle to untangle while your flesh is melted from your bones by the invisible flames of burning ethanol. That's pretty crazy too, right? How that burning shit is like burning, but it's invisible. That's not. Not only did Emerson Fittipaldi Emo never panic, Emo never put himself in a position where he might have to. Like Emo, Denny never took unnecessary risks. While I, too, admire and try to emulate Emo, I still think that I would like to drive like Ayrton Senna. Ayrton Senna is, yeah, Ayrton Senna. Just, you don't know about. I have a tattoo that says A Senna, you know, full of emotion and daring. I would like to have packed our necessities in the BMW, driven by Zoe's school one day to pick her up unannounced, and then headed directly for Canada. From Vancouver, we could have driven east to Montreal, where they have many fabulous road courses and where they host a Formula One Grand Prix every summer, to live by ourselves in peace for the rest of our lives. But it was not my choice. I was not behind the wheel. No one cared a whit about me, which is why they were all in such a state of panic when Zoe asked her grandparent if she could see me. Now remember, this is the dog, so the dog is like, wow, she's asking to see me. You see, no one had accounted for my whereabouts. The twins not knowing where they're. Oh, you see? So all this while that Denny had been telling the daughter, while like he couldn't see his daughter because the twins had pulled the fast bullshit, underhanded, getting the custody of their daughter's daughter, his daughter, right? He says he's gone racing, but Zoe, the little girl, is smart enough to say, "Where's the dog then?" Wow. So they all got in a state of panic when the little girl asked if she could see the dog. You see, no one had accounted for my whereabouts. The twins, not knowing where their elaborate fiction had placed me, immediately called Mark Fine, that's Denny's attorney, who immediately called Denny to outline the nature of our predicament. She believes it all. I could hear Mark shout over the phone, even though the phone was pressed close to Denny's ear. So where did you leave the fucking dog? You could have taken him with you, but there are quarantine rules. Does she know about quarantine? Tell her of course she can see Enzo, Denny said calmly. Enzo is staying with Mike and Tony while I'm in Europe. Zoe likes them and she'll believe it. I'll have Mike bring Enzo over on Saturday. And that's what happened. In the early afternoon, Mike picked me up and drove me over to Mercer Island, and I spent the afternoon playing with Zoe on the great lawn. Before dinner time, Mike returned me to Denny. How did she look? Denny asked Mike. She looked terrific, Mike said. She has her mother's smile. They had a good time together? A fantastic time. They played all day. Fetch? Denny asked, thirsty for details. Did she use the chuck it or did she play chase? Eve never liked it when they played chase. No, mostly fetch, Mike said kindly. I never minded when they played chase because I know Enzo, but Eve was always, Mike said. Sometimes they just flopped down on the grass and cuddled together. It was really sweet. Denny wiped his nose quickly. Thanks, Mike, he said. Really, thanks a lot. Any time, Mike said. I appreciated Mike's effort to appease Denny, even though he was avoiding the truth. Or maybe Mike didn't see what I saw. Maybe he couldn't hear what I heard. Zoe's profound sadness, her loneliness, her whispered plans that she and I would somehow smuggle ourselves off to Europe and find her father. Oh, that sucks for the dog, huh? Oh, and the little girl is so sad. Such a little girl, too. That summer without Zoe was very painful for Denny. In addition to feeling isolated from his daughter, his career was derailed. Though he was offered the opportunity to drive again for the racing team he was with the previous year, the racing team he was with the previous year, he was forced to decline as the pending criminal case demanded that he remain in the state of Washington at all times or he would forfeit his bond. Further, he was not allowed to accept any of the lucrative teaching jobs and commercial work offers that came his way. After his spectacular experience at Thunder Hill, he was highly recommended in the commercial industry and received offers over the phone fairly frequently. These jobs almost always took place in California or sometimes in Nevada or Texas and occasionally in Connecticut, and therefore were forbidden to him. He was a prisoner of the state. And yet, we are all afforded our physical existence so we can learn about ourselves. So I understand why Denny, on a deeper level, allowed this situation to befall him. I won't say he created the situation, but he allowed it because he needed to test his mettle. He needed to know how long he could keep his foot on the accelerator before lifting. He chose this life, and therefore he chose this battle. And I realized as the summer matured and I frequently visited Zoe without Denny that I was a part of this too. I was integral to the integral, to the drama because on those late Saturday afternoons in July, oh my God, after Mike reviewed the events of the day with Denny and then returned to his own world, Denny would sit with me on the back porch and quiz me. Did you play fetch? Did you tug? Did you chase? He would ask. Did you cuddle? He would ask, how did she look? Is she eating enough fruit? Are they buying organic? I tried. I tried as hard as I could to form words for him, but they wouldn't come out. I tried to beam my thoughts into his head via telepathy. I tried to send him the pictures I saw in my mind. I twitched my ears, I cocked my head, I nodded, I pawed until he smiled. Yeah, my dog's not Enzo. Haha. Until he smiled at me and stood. Thanks, Enzo, he would say on those days. You're not too tired, are you? I would stand and wag. I'm never too tired. Let's go then. He would grab the chucket and the tennis ball and walk me down to the blue dog park, and we would play fetch until the light grew thin, and the mosquitoes came out of hiding, thirsty for their dinner. Chapter 39, because I am getting through this book. There was an occasion that summer when Denny found a teaching engagement in Spokane, and via Mike, our fake intercontinental liaison, asked if the twins, which are his in laws, could take me for the weekend. They agreed, as they had grown accustomed to my presence in their home, and I always handled myself with the utmost dignity when I was around them, never soiling their expensive rugs or carpet, never begging for food, and never drooling when I swept. I would much rather have gone to racing school with Denny, but I understood that he depended on me to take care of Zoe and also to act as some kind of witness on his behalf. Though I could not relate to him the details of our visit, my presence, I think, reassured him in some way. On Friday afternoon, I was delivered by Mike into Zoe's waiting embrace. She immediately ushered me into her room and we played a game of dress up together. To say that I was taking one for the team would be an understatement, considering the crazy outfits I was forced to wear. But that's my ego speaking. I knew my role as a jester in Zoe's court, and I was happy to play the part. That evening, Maxwell took me outside earlier than usual, urging me to get busy. When I came back inside, I was led to Zoe's room, which already had my bed in it. Apparently, she had requested I sleep with her rather than by the back door, or, God forbid, in the garage. I curled into a ball and quickly dozed off. A bit later, I woke. The lights were dim. Zoe was awake and active, encircling my bed with piles of her stuffed animals. They'll keep you company, she whispered to me as she surrounded me, seemingly hundreds of them, all shapes and sizes. I was being surrounded by teddy bears and giraffes, sharks and dogs, cats, birds, and snakes. She worked steadily and I watched until I was nothing more than a small ship or raft on the Pacific and the animals were my coral reef. I found it somewhat amusing and touching that Zoe cared to share me with her animals in that way, and I drifted off to sleep, feeling protected and safe. I awoke later in the night and saw that the wall of animals around me was quite high. Still, I was able to shift my weight and change positions to make myself more comfortable. But when I did, I was shocked by a frightening sight. One of the animals, the one on top, staring straight at me. It was the zebra, the replacement zebra, the one she had chosen to fill in for the demon that I had ripped apart before so long ago. The demon had returned, and though it was dark in the room, I know I saw a glint of light in its eyes. As you can imagine, my sleep was sparse that night. The last thing I wanted was to awaken amid animal carnage because the demon had returned. I forced myself to stay awake, yet I couldn't help. I know, right? Me, I do. Um, okay. I felt sluggish all day, but I did my best to keep up, and I tried to catch up on my sleep by napping quietly. To any observer, I'm sure I gave off the impression of being quite contented. However, I was anxious about nightfall, concerned that once again the zebra would torture me with its mocking eyes. That afternoon, as the twins took their alcohol on the deck, as they tended to do, and Zoe watched television in the TV room. I slept outside in the sun, and I heard them. Ugh. Oh my god, I was reading away and my thing was off. Sorry, my bad. I know it's for the best, Trish said, but still, I feel badly for him. It's for the best, Maxwell said. I know, but still. He forced himself on a teenage girl, Maxwell said sternly. What kind of a father preys on innocent young girls? But he didn't really do that. Why did I blow the nose here? Did I? I thought I had muted it, but I blew my nose online. I hate that shit. See, I thought I muted it, but I muted it. See, I didn't mute it to blow my nose. I muted it when I came in. What a fool. Alright. Okay, so whatever. Hey, it happens. It happens. Who knows? I lifted my head from the warm wood of the deck, and I saw Trish shake her head. What? Maxwell demanded. From what I hear, she's not that innocent. What you hear, Maxwell blurted. He forced himself on a young girl. That's rape. I know. It's just that the timing of her coming forward it is a big coincidence. Yeah, but usually I don't do that. I'm so fucking pissed at myself. I hate myself for that. Alright, so. No, Trish said. Wait a minute. Okay, wait. So it's a coincidence that the girl said that I know. It's like the numbers are going up. It's like in my nose. Online. What an ass I am. Okay. I didn't mean to, but whatever. I thought it was off. Instead, I was reading with it muted. That's cool. Okay. All right. The timing of her coming forward is a big coincidence. Are you suggesting that she made it up? No, Trish said. But why did Pete wait to tell us about it until after you complained to him so bitterly that you were certain we wouldn't get custody of Zoe? I don't care about any of that, Maxwell said, waving her off. He wasn't good enough for Eve, and he's not good enough for Zoe. And if he's stupid enough to get caught with his pants down and his pecker in his fist, you're going to be damn sure I'm going to seize the moment. Zoe will have a better childhood with us. She will have a better moral raising, a better financial raising, a better family life. And you know it, Trish. You know it. I know, she said, and sipped her amber drink with the bright red cherry drowned at the bottom of the glass. What's that, like a Manhattan? But he's not a bad person. He poured his drink down his gullet, slapped the glass down on the table. It's time to start dinner, he said, and he went inside. I was stunned. I, too, had noted the coincidence of events, and I had been suspicious since the beginning. But to hear the words, the coldness in Maxwell's tone. Imagine this. Imagine having your wife die suddenly of a brain cancer. Then imagine her parents attack you mercilessly in order to gain custody of your daughter. Imagine that they exploit allegations of sexual molestation against you. They hire very expensive and clever lawyers because they have much more money than you have. Imagine that they prevent you from having any contact with your 6-year-old daughter for months on end. And imagine they restrict your ability to earn money to support yourself and, of course, as you hope, your daughter. How long would you last before your will was broken? They had no idea who they were dealing with. Denny would not kneel before them. He would never quit. He would never break. With disgust, I followed them into the house. Trish began her preparations, and Maxwell took his jar of peppers from the refrigerator. Inside me, a darkness brewed. Remember the time that he gave the dog uh, the peppers? They were like pepperoncinis, and they made him like have a bad stomach. Contrivers, manipulators. They were no longer people to me. They were now the evil twins. Evil, horrible, dastardly people who stuffed themselves with burning hot peppers in order to fuel the bile in their stomachs. When they laughed, flames shot out of their noses. They were not worthy of life, these people. They were disgusting creatures, nitrogen based life forms that lived in the very darkest corners of the deepest lake, where there is no light and the pressure crushes everything to stand. Deep, dark places where oxygen would never dare venture. My anger with the evil twins fed my thirst for revenge, and I was not above using the tools of my dogness to exact justice. I presented myself to Maxwell as he stuffed another pepper into his mouth and pulverized it with the ceramic teeth he removed at night. I sat before him. I lifted a paw. Want a treat? He asked me, clearly surprised by my gesture. I barked. Here you go, boy. Bye, Lucas. He extracted a pepper from the bottle and held it before my nose. It was a very large one, long and artificially green and smelling of sulfites and nitrates, the devil's candy. I don't think those things are good for dogs, Trish said. He likes them, Maxwell countered. My first thought was to take the pepperoncini and a couple of Maxwell's fingers with it, but that would have caused real problems, and I likely would have been euthanized before Mike could return to save me. So I didn't take his fingers. I did, however, take the pepper. I knew it was bad for me, that I would suffer immediate discomfort, but I knew my discomfort would pass, and I anticipated the unpleasant rebound effect, which is what I wanted. After all, I am just a stupid dog, unworthy of human scorn, without the brains to be responsible for my own bodily functions. A dumb dog. I observed their dinner carefully because I wanted to see it for myself. The twins served Zoe some kind of chicken covered in creamy sauce. They didn't know that while Zoe loved chicken cutlets, she never ate them with sauce, and certainly never with cream. She disliked the consistency. When she didn't eat the string beans they served, Trish asked if she would like a banana instead. Zoe replied affirmatively, and Trish made some banana slices, which Zoe barely picked at because they were crudely sliced and speckled with brown spots, which she always avoided. When Denny prepared her bananas for her, he took great care in slicing them in uniform thickness, after removing any and all brown spots he could find. And these agents of evil, these supposed grandparents, thought Zoe would be better off with them. Bah! They didn't spend a moment thinking about her welfare. After dinner, they didn't even ask why she hadn't eaten the bananas. They allowed her to leave the table, having eaten almost nothing. Denny never would have allowed that. He would have prepared for her something she liked, and he would have required that she eat a sufficient dinner to continue to grow in a healthy way. All the while I watched, I seethed, and in my stomach, a foul concoction steeped. When it was time to take me out that night, Maxwell opened the French door to get to the back deck and began his idiotic chanting. Get busy, boy, get busy. I didn't go outside. I looked up at him and I thought about what he was doing, how he was ruining our family, pulling apart the fabric of our lives for his own smug, self congratulatory purposes. I thought about how he and Trish were grossly inferior gardens for my Zoe. I crouched in my stance right there inside the house and I shit a massive, soupy, stinky, pungent pile of diarrhea on his beautiful, expensive, linen covered Berber carpet. What the hell? He shouted at me. Bad dog. I turned and trotted cheerfully to Zoe's room. Get busy, motherfucker, I said as I left. But of course, he couldn't hear me because he's a dog, but I think that's pretty funny. Get busy, motherfucker. As I settled into my lagoon of stuffed animals, I heard Maxwell exclaim loudly and call for Trish to clean up my mess. I looked at the zebra still perched on his throne of lifeless animal carcasses, and I growled at it softly. And the demon knew. The demon knew not to mess with me that night, not that night or ever again. So I don't know if I should go on to 40, but I'm gonna have to subscribe to live stream, StreamYards, whatever the fuck it is. I'm gonna end up paying an arm and a leg for this book, just so you guys know. Arm and a leg. Arm and a leg, I'll be paying. Because I'm at what? Okay, so how many chapters? I'm going into chapter 40. Okay. Well, I'm not going into it. I don't think I'm gonna. But it goes to chapter. I got 19 more chapters to go. Quick ones, though. I mean, I could whip through this, but I don't think I will. I'm dying to. I gotta get this done. I'm gonna pay an arm and a leg for it. I may as well bought the book. Anyhow, love you guys. Keep having tacos. Thank you for listening.